You're listening to the Diginauts on the Good Talk Podcast Network.
Hey Eric, it's another episode of the Diginauts.
Yes, it is.
The question is, are we going to be too distracted by the political election results, or are we going to be able to record a good podcast?
A little distraction at the beginning, but it gets better.
So we're going to talk about other subjects today, including mining asteroids. Coming right up on the Diginauts. Society,
The future,
morality,
disruption,
policy,
humanity,
innovation,
technology,
morality, the future, law, humanity, society. Space gold, yeehaw!
Diginauts.
Greetings, people of Earth. I am Darren.
I'm Eric.
And as you can hear in Eric's voice, we're recording this on election night. We're looking at the results that are coming in. Right now, at nbcnews.com, we're looking at 209 Hillary, 244 Donald Trump. This is not a politics show. We're not going to talk politics too much. That said, it's hard to talk about anything else right now. So we're going to talk a little bit about the science side of things. Tonight, while we're still allowed to use the word science, because I'm assuming tomorrow morning it's going to be outlawed.
Well, not if you go to Canada. Literally, the Canadian citizenship and immigration site is crashing. You can't get it to load.
Wow. Now, see, are they still kind of like, hey, come on over here? I thought I heard some kind of like, you're on your own, guys.
Well, there's not an open invite, but my point is lots of people are checking it out.
I talked to my wife about the little town in Ireland that opened its free borders. That was their idea. Like, anybody wants to come move here? And I'm not entirely kidding about that. Yeah. Anyway, so this is happening. It's a little bit surprising. I think, first of all, we can go ahead and I'm wearing my little I voted sticker. I assume you voted as well today, Eric.
I did.
I think I saw your sticker on Facebook.
I photographed it.
Which, by the way,
didn't
is
wear it.
The universal way of people declaring, your vote doesn't count unless you have your picture on Facebook of your little sticker.
Should be I sharded.
So, is it fair for me to say that you voted for Hillary Clinton?
It is.
Okay. See, because if we're gonna talk about the politics, right? Then we're kind of gonna get into where we sit on it. I actually, and this is how we're gonna talk about this, the technology side of things. I employed a sneaky maneuver. I utilized the Never Trump app, and I traded my vote with somebody in Virginia.
But how do you know they did it?
He sent me a picture.
Interesting.
Of his ballot with Hillary Clinton filled in. On some level, it's just a leap of faith, right?
Right.
But here's the thing. California was never going to be anything, right? So, people, how dare you vote third party? You're throwing your vote away. Well, who cares? Right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, yes, you can have tens of thousands of us do it, right? You can't maybe have hundreds of thousands of us do it, but you probably could, right? Like, it's in that ballpark. So one dude voting third party. First of all, I would love to see third parties on the debate stage, if only to challenge the big two.
Right.
I think the way that we go at it is asinine. And, it's one of those things that, like, until you shake that up a little bit. So, to me, being able to throw some support behind a third-party candidate I didn't throw my vote away.
Right.
Now, purists will absolutely say, how dare you? You didn't vote for Hillary. How could you? Because that's, by the way, how the Hillary campaign has gone at their campaign, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a fan. Whatever. So my vote wasn't going to be for Hillary. It was going to be against Donald. Right. And I'm saying that and recording it and publishing it on the internet before we enter our potential tyranny. So that's dangerous. But anyway, so since I was voting against Donald, I didn't mind making that trade, but I was enabling a Hillary vote in a swing state.
Right.
Which the fact that this kind of gamesmanship is possible, to me, speaks to the outmoded nature of the Electoral College.
And to your point about, like, independents or third parties not being in the debate, like, to me, the way to get around that, like, take the power away from the media. They should all do it via Google Hangout or something like that. Like, you can't stop that.
And there's been a degree to which that's been done. I think Young Turks had several interviews or kind of town hall-y type things and whatnot. But you cannot deny that critical mass is a big part of it, right? Like, there's a significant portion of this world that pays attention to what gets repeated, many, 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 many times, right? Our freaking election lasts a year and a half. So you're spending all that time following it, and nobody pays attention to all of that for the first, year of it, but then you're inundated with the last folks left. And, so the fact is that the two parties can agree on one thing, and that's that they don't want any other parties involved at the table, right? I mean, an idiot like Johnson...
What's Aleppo?
It's not just the what's Aleppo. Although
that's bad.
Did you see his marijuana joke that he made?
I did not.
He was in some kind of public setting, and the previous speaker said something about how marijuana it had the possible side effect of a greater incidence of sudden heart attack. And he kind of... He had good comedic timing. He kind of sat and processed that and then collapsed over. Which is like, okay, you're not even trying to be president if you think that's, funny. Yeah. But, the what's Aleppo and then the I can't name another foreign country or whatever, or was a world leader. That was the question. He couldn't come up with a world leader he could name.
Kermit.
Yeah. Well... I might have respected that more. And then there's the, and Jill Stein, who's coming in at whatever percent. My favorite meme or article that was floating around on Facebook was third-party Jill Stein voters cast their vote by whispering into crystals.
I just rubbed my heels together.
Well, look, I mean, she's like...
What a joke.
She's like 1% off of Hillary's professed campaign platform. If you look at the two of them on paper.
I didn't compare the two.
Which goes
Paid
down...
no attention to Stein.
Sure.
Nor Gary Johnson.
Well, she got the vote of a dude from Virginia in California. So, and I was the pipeline that enabled that. So that's I guess that's my...
Is it even legal to photograph your ballot? There's all those articles popping up. I don't get it.
Yeah, so I did check just to make sure, like, by the way, I'm not going to be, tossing the...
Tossing votes and
I don't even know
yourself.
What our discipline system is going to be coming up, but... the theory is that there's two things that make it legal. One...
Legal or illegal?
Legal.
Okay.
Or at least not illegal. Obviously, it's a legal gray area. And this is normally the kind of shit that I hate, right? I hate people who game the system. I hate people who, like, work it just as hard as... And this is part of why I'm not a huge Hillary fan, right? This is... I mean, we're talking politics. I might as well come out and put my Bernie hat on right now. Because I was hardcore Bernie the whole way. I love idealists, you bet, right? And, to me, start with the bar really high, and then when he fails, he will likely have come, closer or he possibly better than somebody who was like, well, we can only expect a certain amount of compromise. That's kind of just my outlook on life.
Right. That
if you have obnoxiously high goals, then you have a tendency to accomplish more than quote-unquote realists. That's kind of my take on it. And then, I'm a fan of personal integrity. Whatevs. And I have no idea whether Hillary has that or not. I genuinely don't know. And I think that a large percentage of that has to do with background noise and Republican spin and all of that. I'm sure that somehow that's infected my brain. Absolutely positive. I've like spent a long time looking at her record, her voting record in New York. She's done great things for families and for mothers and children. So it's a no-brainer. Like that choice. Yes, her. Pick her. Right.
Except for the Midwest.
I also feel like if it came down to like a contest of like, here, you can be president if you eat this box of kittens, that Hillary would be like, all right, give me a bib, and Bernie would be like, no, we shouldn't be doing this. Whatevs. That's my, one man's opinion. We haven't been getting as much Twitter response as I've been hoping, so now I'm going to incite some with that.
Kitten riot.
Yeah. Whatever. I deserve it. But and I'm going to say this once just so I can get it off my chest.
What's that?
You know who already would have won by now? Bernie.
No. I don't think so.
I know you don't. We're Facebook friends.
You've
been a staunch Clinton supporter forever.
Burnt out. Never felt the burn.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I get it. I get why he's not, a strong presidential candidate. I get why he didn't win. I just
like a Muppet.
But I love that. I love the Muppets. Anyway. So anyway, that's my technology angle into us getting a chance to talk about the politics. Is that
that's interesting?
I used an app to pull this off, which is kind of like
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's like
who made the app? Do you know?
Well, exactly. Some company in the Silicon Valley made the app, and that's about as much as I could track. I was trying to find out, is this like something
what was the name of it?
It was #NeverTrump. The company was like Symbian or something. It looked like a fair amount of it was out-of-the-box software that they were leveraging.
Well, wait a minute. The app's called NeverTrump?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's called #NeverTrump.
Oh, gotcha.
I had problems.
Trimian,
that's it.
Naughty.
Who are they?
I'm not
Have you
sure.
heard of them?
They've made... Oh, wow. They've made a lot of apps. Interesting. A lot of networking and alumni apps.
Okay. I mean, that makes a certain amount of sense, right?
Right.
Like I say, I think it was something where they probably had something sitting around and they leveraged it to this point.
Yeah, they have like over probably close to 50 different apps. Basically repurposing all these apps for like college alumni.
Yeah. Well, and like I say, I don't think that it wasn't polished. And it took me a while to connect with somebody and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So you got to choose, or it just paired you with some
there were a few
dude?
different choices. When you first get there, it tries to pair you with somebody, and then you can chat with them and view their profile and whatever. But nobody was creating profiles. They were just kind of logging in, and then you had to get approved somehow. But the admins would approve you. You had to connect with... You had to have some credential. I made my guy become Facebook friends with me so that we could, like, I'll do this with you, but we have to actually know each other's names and actually see each other's faces.
Oh, you saw his face?
Well, his Facebook pictures.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so, I mean, we connected on Facebook and agreed, hey, we're going to do this. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I didn't, exactly, like, how do you know the person's going to do it, right?
Right.
Well,
could be some 13-year-old saying they're going to vote, and then...
Or it's all a giant Trump thing where they work it out one-sided, right? And they go, oh, yeah, I will totally vote for, you just go ahead and do... you go ahead and do your third party, right? Like we're looking at Michigan, right? That has like a big third party contingent. So imagine them saying, "Oh, well, I'm from Florida. I'd be happy to vote for Hillary down in Florida for anybody who's going to vote Trump in Michigan." Right? They could theoretically game the system. So the legality comes from two things. One, there's no way to prove that both parties went through with it.
How not? Why not?
because
Didn't you both register with the app?
yes, but there's no way to prove that both parties went through with it. The app
Why
didn't
not?
come into
Why
the
not?
voting booth with me. Right? So it's the same
Why
as
does the
like
app have to come into the voting booth? You've already agreed to do the swap.
Sure. Right? But so the same thing would be like, you know, if I like how polling doesn't always come out quite right because people aren't willing to admit what they actually did. Or the sort of
Wait a
like
minute.
last minute change of mind or
Does
whatever.
the app know that you're swapping an independent vote for his Hillary vote?
It asks you up front, but that isn't really part of the exchange. It really becomes a giant chat mechanism afterwards, right? And this is why I was like, we're going to leave this environment and go to Facebook, and then we're going to finish out the conversation.
Interesting.
But the point is that that's part of the legality of it. It's not a contract in which, so there was a couple things. One is your vote has no monetary value.
All right.
So there's no contract of like an item of value having exchange place. I didn't
Maybe
buy
you
the
enjoyed
other
your
person's
companionship for that brief moment.
vote. Well, that's a decent legal case, right? I mean, obviously, companionship in quotes gets traded for money on occasion. You know, I mean, I think you make a good case there. That said, because I don't know how that works out, but it was a combination of the fact that money doesn't change hands. It's illegal to buy somebody's vote. I think it should be. You know, so you can't buy somebody's vote. But there's the trade.
Some Halloween candy.
Yeah, so it's a combination of like the First Amendment. I'm allowed to talk about the idea. I can say whatever I want about trading votes, right? I didn't buy somebody's vote. And at the end of the day, for all I know, dude went and voted for Trump anyway. Right? So that's the sort of like final
photo.
thing. It's possible.
Yeah.
It's theoretically, he didn't. I mean, I went on his site. He was a geek. He had a bunch of, you know, anime stuff up on his site. We were simpatico. I belive in him. You know, and then
You should share the podcast.
and the
with
other
them.
thing, I should. Well, we're Facebook friends now, so I will.
That's awesome.
So and I had said in my initial approach to people, I had said I have a mail-in vote in California. I can send you a picture, and then we kind of dropped that part of the conversation. Once we were talking about other things, and he sent a picture, and I was like, "Oh shit! I hope he didn't expect me to send a picture." I mean, I did say it, but I didn't take a picture.
Oh.
And then the other side of that was I had then, after I'd made the arrangement, I did go back and read and like, by the way, this is legal, right? And saw that part of it was that there's no proof, so I didn't want to create. It still wouldn't be proof because the thing still didn't go into the voting booth with me, but it was a mail-in ballot, so I didn't want to have a photo of it. Now here I am, you know, telling the world that I did this, but for all you know, I'm lying. Right? I could have gone in there and voted for
And left it blank.
I could have left it blank. I honestly thought about leaving it blank. Because all the other stuff was like California had a ridiculous number of state things to vote for this year. It was
That's true.
Nuts.
I think that's part of what made the line so long.
Yeah.
In some places.
Well, and it
not.
was no small stuff for us here. It was abolishing the death penalty. Like, if you get
Right.
down to things people hash out in civics classes, that's up there. And marijuana legalization.
I forgot what state, but John Oliver did a whole thing like where it might have been Nebraska, where it was like to repeal or repeal, which basically confused everyone. What in the world it was actually doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we had a couple of them where it was like, do you want to ban plastic bags,
Right.
and do you want to make people pay for plastic bags? I was like, well, what happens if that one passes and that one doesn't pass? What happens if the other one passes but that doesn't pass? What happens if they
You'll
both
be paying
pass?
for non-banned bags. I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, some of them should theoretically supersede. Like, it kind of needed somebody to come along and tie the two things together and make you have three choices would have made it make sense.
I would have preferred to see some more important issues like, how can we get homeless off the street?
Oh, that. By voting for Trump, I guess, which is now they've given him Florida and Georgia
and order.
At this point. It's not looking good for the Hillary folks as I'm looking over there. She's got, Minnesota.
At this point, I don't think it's possible.
It looks like she'll take Nevada, but not Arizona. They just reelected John McCain, by the way. Oh, look at that. It's looking like he's going to get Pennsylvania.
Really?
Well, I don't know if it's looking like, but this current stat, like at this snapshot moment in time, he's leading her by 0.1% in Pennsylvania.
Oh.
So how does this happen, right? Because she was 6 points ahead for, I don't know, the last month? Is this down to...
Mr. Comey?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I can see three scenarios. One is the Comey letter caused enough of the early voters to bail. That would be a possibility.
I think the bigger problem is, like, Trump was touting, like, I'm going to bring jobs back to America.
Yeah.
The jobs he's talking about?
They're going to be terrific.
Tremendous. But the problem is, like, it's not realistic. Like...
What?
He outsources his own jobs.
Yeah. Well, there's no consistency in any...
And candidly, I would argue we don't want these manufacturing jobs. Like,
yeah,
it's not a long-standing career
like
it was years ago when the auto industry was thriving.
We're talking about, Michigan's at the key. It is pretty key to this, right?
The whole Midwest.
Well, yes, absolutely. But you brought up auto... the auto industry, and in my mind, I'm thinking like, well, remember President Obama? Remember him? How he got elected, and the first thing he did was save 1 million jobs in the state of Michigan. Like, what kind of conversations had to happen to cause 1 million people to go, thanks for saving our jobs, Democrats, but that guy's a reality TV star, so I don't get that translation, how that worked out for folks.
Yeah, and like the coal miners, like that's a whole nother thing. Like they view solar as a threat.
Right.
Again, in my opinion, the problem is like we have so many workers in America that have these skill sets that are out of date. Yeah. And they're in these dinosaur industries. And
see, I knew we'd get back to technology.
Dinosaur industries, and they see no way out.
Right.
No one's giving them a way out. Right. And candidly, like, it's hard to get out. But there's got to be something otherwise.
Well, and are the Democrats, as they're, because Obama has done some aggressive, like, let's move out of coal. Is he failing to set up job training? You hear about it every time there's a move in that direction. But somehow it must not be working, or at least people don't think it's working.
Nope.
So and that brings me to the second reason that I thought could be a possibility of why the election's turning out this way is that the echo chamber of media, everybody, on Facebook, you now hear yourself and things that are like you, right? You don't hear dissenting opinions that much. I come from a very conservative town. My high school friends don't show up that much in my Facebook feed. Like, it's a known fact that their algorithm feeds you back some of what you already think. Or the like different newspapers have different front pages based on who they think you are, or which part of the country they're going to run the story in, et cetera, et cetera. So we are in this sort of world where... And this is all comes down to, that's the state of the media, that we are now paying for media by the click. And so if giving you what you like causes you to click, reinforces what you already think, rather than challenging any sort of critical thinking idea. So I think it's possible that there were a hell of a lot of people out there in Trump land who were never asked, if that makes sense. Yeah, they maybe got polled, but they're more likely to be the people who say, leave me the hell alone, get off my lawn. Or, that they think the vote is more of a private thing, or they're kind of, so I think it's possible that there's just a bias towards red that we don't know about, right? Because everybody who's blue, right, because we're out here on the West Coast, yes, if we go down to San Diego, if we go down to Orange County, we're going to see plenty of Trump signs in the yards, but we know that there's enough blue in San Francisco and Sacramento. Well, not Sacramento as much. In San Francisco and in LA, the two big population centers. San Jose is actually bigger than San Francisco. But if you put those three cities together, that's enough to carry the state by like 60%.
Yeah.
And so I think we, on this side of the country, and I'm from Washington, which, like I said, was like 75% Bernie in the primary. So you're in a world where you're out of touch with the rest of the world, the rest of the country. That's a theory. My third theory is it's rigged.
Oh God.
Hey, how else do you explain mathematical discrepancies beyond what statisticians think is possible?
What, the people's predictions versus what turned out?
Yeah.
You can't predict everything, and there's always a margin of error.
Yep, they're counting on you to think that. That's right. I just put on my tinfoil hat, ladies and gentlemen. No, I mean, I do think that it is a corner of, because I've mentioned this many times before. If you get into GMO, if you get into vaccinations, trying to find reliable sources of information for things like this is very difficult.
Yep.
Every time I've tried to read up about sort of how things work, it's very difficult to find trustworthy sources that are actually investigating our voting machines. But we can definitely say that the voting machines are old technology, that some places are computerized and some
Mine
aren't.
wasn't even a machine.
Oh,
It's a
absolutely.
paper ballot.
In California. Let's talk Ohio. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to take my tinfoil hat off, but if anybody's interested and you want to start your own search, start with Ohio. And Diebold. I'm not making any accusations. I'm just putting those two keywords out there and saying somebody with more time than me, go do some actual investigation. Stick with reliable sources. Don't go down the rabbit holes of internet chicanery and ridiculousness. But
InfoWars.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's the other thing, right? You go back to my number 2 where we're split and we're just feeding back, what we already think. There are so many websites that are making their money off of one-sided.
Yeah, I think a whole bunch of people in, I think, Macedonia. These Macedonian teens
are
making millions because they're just pumping these Trump sites.
Right. So, I mean, whether there's actively a giant, dark, shadowy cabal out controlling the world or not, there are people gaming the system in terms of propaganda. And not to disclude, the networks themselves. So.
Yep.
Anyway, we've talked for a while about politics. It's still 2:44 to 2:09. I think basically we're going to have to go to sleep and just wake up to the headline, and it may not be pretty.
And vomit.
Anything else you want to say about our situation? I didn't think this was going to happen. I really genuinely was like, nah.
I don't think anyone did. I don't even think Trump von Fuckstick did either.
Yeah, right? Why? I've read one article that put forward the theory, or it was a Michael Moore article. He said that he was 100% certain that Trump and whatever, Michael Moore, I just got done complaining about people who only present one side of the story and go light on fact-checking. But he put forward the story that Trump had no intention of running for president, that it was as he was renegotiating his salary in The Apprentice, he was like, well, maybe I'll run for president. That's how important I am. Because his ratings were flagging or whatever, and somebody tried to pull a power move on him, and he was like, oh yeah, maybe I'll run for president. And he accidentally fucking became president. If you buy that theory. But he is putting forth the idea that he knows someone who knows someone who knows for a fact that that's the situation. Which, maybe. Anyway.
I don't know.
I voted. Yay.
Darren.
Yells.
How are we going to get more ratings on iTunes?
We're going to keep replacing our ads with us asking people to go over and rate us over and over and over again until it gets so annoying that nobody will ever listen to this podcast again. Wait, no. No one will ever listen to this podcast without first going over and rating us.
There you go.
I like it.
So that's what we'd like you to do. So take some time, go to iTunes, find our podcast, give us both a high star rating and a very nice review. So Darren, we've talked about so many topics in the past. I think it's about time we revisit some of those things.
Yes, I think it's going to become a thing. I keep pushing for it to be segment 4, right? I was playing with something more in segment 4, but today we're doing it in segment 2, which I like because it's
bonus.
It is a bonus because we can say let's review in segment 2. Anyway, the point of this is that a lot of times we'll talk about something and then something happens in the news that's sort of the latest development in that area.
And candidly, we've been beating TechCrunch, we've been beating Bloomberg to many of these stories.
Which is fantastic. I love to say that we're on the ball with bringing all of you, our lovely listeners, the very, very best. We're not out doing investigative journalism. There are other sources out there that are, actually the ones that are beating TechCrunch and Bloomberg to these stories. So we should give some credit to them, but let's not tell our audience where they are because we're at least doing that amount of curating. And we're adding our delightful insight and personality. So if that isn't a reason to make people go to iTunes right now and subscribe, I don't know what is. Anyway, the 2 stories that we were going to revisit today is one from last time where we talked about the DDoS attack that happened that shut down Twitter and Reddit and others. So there was an article in The Atlantic. Andrew McGill is the guy who put this together, and he basically was curious. He's like, did my DVR help bring down Twitter? And he found out that probably not. It turns out that most of the devices that got used were a little bit older. So he wanted to do kind of almost a thought experiment. It was an actual experiment, I guess. He was like, if I have a dumb device that's connected to the internet, he was playing with the idea of what if I had a dumb toaster, right? Like an IP connected toaster, which I think is a magnificent use of technology.
Images onto your toast, or just?
Oh, I suppose you could. You just made it better. I think the concept is
scandalous images.
It texts you when your toast is ready or something. You should get on that. You got $1 billion idea waiting right there. Anyway, so he was like, if I'm connected to the internet, if I'm a device with an IP address connected to the internet, what kind of potential hacking traffic am I going to see?
Right.
So he rented a small space on an Amazon server, and he connected it up and was basically just is this going to be, are we talking weeks or are we talking days that it's going to take for people to come and try to hack me?
So did he like promote the IP address somewhere?
No, that's actually the whole point.
But how in the world did that someone discover that? They're just like
Exactly.
rolling through like random dial.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I mean, so here's what happened. He says he switched on his server at 1:12 p.m. on Wednesday, and his first attempt to hack his machine happened at 1:53 p.m. on Wednesday. So it was less than an hour before somebody, just as you say, basically they had to have just plain like, oh, there's a thing. Now, I don't know near enough about how all that works. There could be a degree to which if your device exists on an IP address, it can't be used in any way unless something is indexing it, right? I mean, you have to remember that all these things are happening at the speed of computers, so...
Right, I mean, I guess you could randomly ping IP addresses, and if you get a response that's indicative of life...
Yeah,
have at it.
If you're a computer, right, the number of choices that represent IP addresses is something that on a fast connection with a fast processor, you could probably scan all IP addresses in who knows how long, right? Hours, days, certainly not weeks, right?
Don't know.
Because all they're sending is a small packet of data, right? So all they need is, as you say, like, this didn't go nowhere. Not to use a double negative, but I believe that would actually be what the code is looking for. This didn't go nowhere, which is a little different than this went somewhere.
Right.
But
toaster.
Yeah, exactly. So he found out that he got to hit that fast. He said that he then got hits at 207, 210, 240, 248.
But did they actually like gain control or alter his toasting?
Well, so
was he toast?
I'm not sure whether whether there was anything to get control of anyway. I think it was really kind of a test to see whether they could get past the front door. So he said that some of them tried XC3511, which is the factory default for old webcams.
Oh, interesting.
And specifically some of the webcams that were hijacked in the DDoS. So he definitely encountered...
The story is set up honeypot toasters so that your webcams don't get hacked.
Well, no, because they'll just both get hacked.
Fair enough.
Bottom line. So I mean, the fact of the matter is just you have to assume that if it's connected, it's getting... this website, right? We have hundreds of attempts that the Askamet WordPress plugin will deflect on like a weekly basis, so there are people out there actively trying. One of my websites, Brevity TV, that sucker got mired to the point that I couldn't fix it at one point. Filled with advertisements for Nikes, and at one point porn. So that when you came to the site, it would send you porn, but only, this is the fun part, only if you accessed it on an iPhone. Which, I don't know what the thinking was behind that, why that was, but me here, Mr. PC Android user, I didn't know! So it went a while before one of the members of the organization was like, this isn't our sketch comedy. That happened. And I ultimately had to get a third-party service to come in and clean things out because I could not track down. They're insidious. Once they find a way in, then they lay as many eggs as they can, so that even if you're going in and pulling out some of the code areas themselves, they may have left something that will replant that same stuff later. So that was fun. So I mean, that's kind of a follow-up to the DDoS when we were mentioning that the Internet of Things introduces a whole new side of things. To the savvy listener,
needs to be a McAfee for these connected devices.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly it.
Surprised they haven't done it yet.
Well, I think stuff exists for different stuff. The problem partly is that it's not the same as this is my computer, I install stuff on it, right? You don't think I'm going to plug this toaster in and I'm going to use its cool internet features and, oh yeah, I have to install virus protection, right? Like the average user doesn't know how to do stuff with their different devices.
Or it's like Belkin, Linksys, or Cisco should somehow create some way to block stuff.
Well, they do a little bit, right? So if you're behind a router, that's offering you 1 degree of protection right there. So your webcam theoretically is getting some protection from your house to the outside. But if you left your router with the same password that was the factory install, right? Have you changed the password on your router?
I have.
Good man. I have, but I don't know if I did it the first day, And now I'm like, oh, you got to do that when you plug in, or, well, before you plug in. So anyway, so that's the follow-up on the DDoS. Everybody be careful with your devices, or you might enable China to bring us down, basically.
Or Trump.
Or, well, see, we're back to my conspiracy theories, right? There's plenty of people saying that Russia was on his side. Russia's been hacking. Can they get to the Ohio ballots? Probably not. Do your research. Tinfoil hat, people. Anyway, so the other story that we were going to revisit was from, I think, our first episode ever. We discussed autonomous vehicles, and we discussed weaponized drones.
Right.
This is a little bit in both of those worlds. We talked last week also about DARPA, the branch of the government that uses science for death bringing. I believe that's their motto.
Kill them all.
So they have been experimenting with, this is an article out of the New York Times, the Pentagon's Terminator conundrum is their headline. And what we're addressing here is a step beyond what we talked about last time. Because we were talking about drones and using them to end conflict, like the Dallas shooter story where they sent a bomb robot not to disarm a bomb, but to deliver a bomb. And the fact of the matter is somebody was still driving that thing.
Right. Human controlled, but remotely.
Exactly. And that was kind of the first story we're talking about. But the science is now, well, why does a human have to be involved? Instead, why don't we experiment with letting an AI make the decision on whom to kill? Always have your proper murder grammar. So, so the idea is they are playing in this video with, or in this article, there's a video in the article, with an autonomous drone that they send in over a replica of a Middle Eastern city. And the replica has the ability to scan the city, look for the citizens, decide who's a threat, and take their asses out. No human involved. It's just a flying machine gun with an AI.
Law and order.
Order. I'll give you that.
I'll take one murder, please.
No, I think it's going to take as many murders as it feels like. So the idea here...
Wait a minute, how do you stop it?
Not with a machine gun, because if you're holding a machine gun, that's what it uses to figure out whether you're a bad guy. So this is the whole thing.
That's interesting.
Right?
Wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. You're with me now. So and this is, experimental. They're just kind of trying to hey, so theoretically, if we wanted to be able to do this, they're not doing it as far as we know. But the idea is that this drone
they're just talking and writing about this? They have not done it, you're saying?
It's a simulation.
So is this probably...
Our existence? That's another story for another episode. But yeah, so the point is that it has its missiles, or it has its weapons that it can decide who to launch at. So it's going in and it's saying, all right, we're in a city. There are 14 humans here, and 5 of those humans are carrying AK-47s. Let's take them out. That decision making is happening by a machine, right? So, legal gray area?
Winner, chicken dinner.
I mean, so if you imagine our current drone technology, we sort of fly over the city and let the missile go on all of them.
Now we're being just more selective.
Now we're picking only the people who are holding a weapon. I don't know what stops it from getting good guys with weapons, right? You certainly probably wouldn't be able to use this technology in a city that's under current fire.
Definitely not Aleppo.
Yeah, exactly. So I would think that you would be using this more as like a, let's take out the guards before we start the conflict. It's a weird gray area, right? I mean, it does give a certain amount of credence to the idea of like, no, we only took out soldiers. Because if he's holding the gun, he's probably a soldier or a guard, right? A whatever, military combatant, whatever the government needs to call them.
Or hunting.
Well, if you're hunting with an AK-47, once again...
Well, how is it going to discriminate?
No, it's not. Yeah, absolutely, it's not. I said it gave more credence. I didn't say that it was, they'd worked it out, down to the level. And obviously that's...
What if it sees one shouldered, just on a strap? What if it sees the .45 caliber in my pocket?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Who knows, right? I think that's exactly what they're playing with. But the point is that it raises the question of, are we willing to let our weapons move past the sort of like drone level to the the Terminator level, where the machine is being given that life and death choice. And then there's the argument that like, well, humans are so emotional. We've taken that away. We're going to have whatever our magical decision is that makes the decision. The AI is going to follow the algorithm.
Right. My point, it's like, how is it going to learn? Was it like under fake scenarios, real scenarios? Like,
yeah, well, I mean, they're testing it without real weapons, right? They're kind of like, okay, which people did you choose to attack? I assume. And checking that against whether or not it's what they wanted to do. Yeah, I mean, and then you can imagine this kind of technology being strapped to all kinds of vehicles and whatnot. In general, I favor less machines able to kill. I do see why they might want to, be able to have that in their quiver of war choices, but it's better than we're fighting an enemy in an urban situation. We're gonna have to shell this whole block in order to be able to get to the insurgents, right? And now we've taken out a school and a hospital. It's better than that.
Yep.
But it's creepy. My favorite word on this podcast. So that happened, for better or worse. It's not in use as far as I understand so far, but it's out there. It's a possibility for our future. Hey, so Eric, I was over at the iTunes store and I noticed there was a comment from E. Fader. Is that you?
That was me.
Of course it is.
I was just giving an example of what our listeners should do.
They should follow your example. If enough of our listeners were rating us on iTunes, you wouldn't have to do that.
Exactly.
We wouldn't have to come talk about it right
I'm
here.
have to come up with more aliases.
You probably are. Hey, folks, There is nothing more important in the launching of a podcast than helping the iTunes algorithm feel like we are popular, that we're doing something cool. So if you are listening to this show, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, it would help us so much if you would stop right now, go over to the iTunes store, give us a rating, and we will meet you right back here for the next segment. All right, we're going to call this our final segment today because we got to go home and drown our sorrows after this, because it's just not looking like the election outcome is going to come out any differently. But we do have a future file story. At least there's the future to think about. The future file story for today is about a company that is making plans with the Luxembourgian, is that right? Luxembourg?
Whoa.
Luxembourg? I can't say the country name without sounding like the Swedish chef. The government of Luxembourg. I don't know what Luxembourgers? I think that actually might be right.
It's like fast food.
Anyway, it's a U.S. company called Planetary Resources. They've partnered with the government of Luxembourg, who gave them several grants, and the idea they're basically investing. That government is investing in this company. This company is interested in mining in space.
Interesting.
They say, let's head to the asteroids and let's go get stuff.
So they're just going to drag a whole asteroid back to Earth?
Well, so that's the part to me that's like, details, please.
Or are they going to drill into one, take those pieces, and then bring that back?
Want to assume. I mean,
I think either way, there's going to be I think there's going to be a lot of issues. Like, there's already a lot of space junk, and even like a piece of dust can like penetrate like a space shuttle. So
right.
I don't know how they're going to
maybe don't
control
haul
that.
back an asteroid. Is that what? Yeah. So I don't think this has gotten that far. I think they've just kind of said, space gold, yeehaw, is about as far as they've gotten on this. So the company, Planetary Resources, they are out of Washington State. They call themselves an asteroid prospecting company. They kind of got to start that way, and then they make it sound like accidentally. I don't know how accidentally it is. They put these satellites up to kind of see what's going on the asteroids. And then they realized, we have these satellites in space that are designed to be able to scan foreign bodies and figure out what's going on inside the foreign bodies, what they're made of, all this kind of stuff. What if we turned that back to Earth, much closer, and looked at Earth? So that's actually become kind of a pivoted business model for them. If I'm understanding the company's website, they have a video on the front. That just kind of became, or at least a guy kind of indicates in the video that that's what happened, was that they started by, we have satellites in space. Maybe we should make money off of this, currently. So they do a lot of...
What are they scanning Earth for?
All kinds of like environmental and biological data.
So have they given up on the asteroid mining?
No. Basically, these are the two lines of business for them. They can offer intelligence about Earth. So, just scanning their website, mid-wave infrared, they can do night imaging capabilities, temperature mapping, water content measurement, crop identification. Exactly. Material identification, spectral fingerprinting. That's kind of what, so imagine that you were desperate to find rare earth metals, let's say. They could theoretically slowly scan, portions of your country where there had previously been some, and at least I would assume give hints of where you might be able, dig here, not there.
Right.
I would think. Now, whether that data, the degree to which that's accurate, who knows? But if they were trying to do spectral analyses of asteroids, which are way far away, turning back to the planet you just came from should be much easier. In other words, if their instrumentation is sensitive enough to go across all that distance, it should theoretically be in good shape on the other stuff.
Imagine they'll run into ownership issues with those asteroids. It's like, who owns them?
Yeah, well, I mean, why did we plant a U.S. flag on the moon, right? Like, the sort of old school technique is whoever gets there first owns it, has at least what the Europeans decided was how the world would get divvy up.
Yeah. Seems like nothing has changed.
Right. So when it comes to space, I mean, I don't think the U.S. overtly claimed the moon, but we did put a flag on it, right? Not accidentally. It's like, by the way, here's a flag.
Right.
And there's certain places like Antarctica is under an international treaty that no one can own Antarctica. I think there's been some conversations about the moon since then.
I own it.
Is it yours? Nice work.
According to the certificate.
I don't know if there's been any conversation about asteroids. I think they're probably still open season. Especially, I mean, here's the thing. These guys think that they might be able to do mining of resources by 2020. Who's going to stop them? Right? If they find an asteroid made entirely of gold and they go up there and, dig it, who's going to be like, no, that's not yours, right? I mean, well, I made a spaceship and I got to the gold, so you can argue if you want, but I do have a gold-plated tank over here to defend my rights. I don't know.
So would those proceeds be taxed upon planetary re-entry?
Yeah, that's a good question. And by whom? I guess it would work just the same as any other commerce. I mean, this is kind of what they're saying, is that they're looking to bring commerce to space.
So would every nation tax them because they're using their airspace?
Well, they're not necessarily, in the Earth's atmosphere at that point, right? Do we tax telecommunications satellites for existing in space? I don't either. We might have to dig that up. So I think this has to be very Wild West. They don't have a business plan here. They're saying we're going to develop this, and I'm sure that's kind of like, we're going to point that away, and we'll figure out what to do about what shows up, as we go. Hopefully for them, it doesn't work out like the plot of Alien, because that was a mining company. That didn't go well for them. Yeah, and I wonder about, like, sort of what are they trying to find, and what are you, like who cares if you find a silver mine in space, right? Because to your point earlier, are you going to then bring the silver back? That sort of doesn't, like, re-entry burns stuff up, right? So you'd have to encapsulate whatever ship. Right? Yeah, exactly. You'd have to either be taxiing a big ship, a cargo freighter, in and out through re-entry, which I can't imagine, even if you're hauling, like, super precious minerals, the expense of going up into space and coming back down into space might not be worth the minerals you bring back.
Right. Or you just find so much and you just send it natively down into the ocean. Right.
So we found gold the size of New Jersey,
and it comes.
We're gonna send it down and
size of Cuba.
Exactly. Well,
I don't know.
I get your point. We find gold the size of New Jersey. We send it down. It burns up, but what lands is the size of a house.
Right.
You have a house size worth of gold. And maybe that pays for the next mission. Perhaps. Who knows? And I think this is one of those things that they're like, we don't know what's going to happen. I do wonder whether they're thinking of terrestrial purposes, or whether they're thinking, hey, Elon Musk is planning to build a space highway up here. Let's be the guys who supply him with... Well, and this is the interesting thing, right? Like we value gold because why? Because it's pretty, because it's pliable, because it conducts electricity well, right? So if you are space travelers, those metals that are useful might be different.
Right.
We might suddenly like, I mean, probably not something like iron. There's plenty of iron in asteroids, but there could be things that, you know, aluminum, let's say, right? Which is plentiful enough on Earth, and it has the advantages of being lightweight and blah, blah, blah. And if you're up in space, you'd love to be able to make some sapphire glass to be your space portal or whatever. But you need aluminum to aluminum oxide it. I'm skipping way ahead and imagining big, like, foundry whatever's in the sky. But it may very well be that what is precious and what is valuable is completely different, just based on...
That's a good point.
Right, an entirely different supply of an entirely different demand, you know, with its own, like, costs of acquisition built in. The future. Yeah, so they don't quite have it figured out. We don't quite have it figured out, but they're going for it anyway, and they're using Luxembourg's money to make it happen. That's what we should do with the podcast. We should talk to Luxembourg. We should say, hey, guys, we're not really sure where this podcast is going,
but it'll be in space.
But I might do it. I don't know. Anyway, we want to know what you think about the topics that we've discussed today. Not so much the politics. We apologize. I apologize. I
don't.
Yeah, fair enough. But at least we did talk technology and society as it has to do with politics. And we also then discussed robots that have the ability to make life and death choices. We discussed mining in space. We would love to hear your take on the stories that we talked about today. Find us on Twitter. I am at Digital Darren, which is spelled Deron.
And I'm at eFader.
And we are all at the Good Talk Network. And of course, you can go to our website and hit us up there. Find the Participate tab, and we'd love to hear from you. You can call us. You can leave messages on the site. Please be part of the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Good talk.